How's it going, everyone? Jiivita here with a lock crash course video. This was requested by, let's see here, Craig Bennett. And yeah, locks can be a little bit confusing. So the main purpose of locks is to, well, lock things, and in particular, lock doors. However, there are 2, maybe even 3 other blocks that you can lock, and that would be shop stands, request baskets, and quite amusingly, you can sort of lock storage blocks, but really you can't effectively lock them. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but first, a little bit of a history lesson just because I find it kind of amusing. If we come over here in testing 16, they added storage locks in GUI. If you look at the date on this is June of 2016. That is basically what, 7 months before I started playing the game. And it's kind of hard to imagine Boundless without at least storage shelves. But originally, storage shelves, even if they're inside of your beacon, they could still be accessed by anybody, so you had to lock them to keep other players out, or simply lock the room that contained your storage shelves. Thankfully, you no longer have to do that just by being in your beacon. In fact, you can only place storage shelves inside of a beacon. That naturally protects it from anyone and everyone. So very nice little thing there, but kind of amusing that originally you had to lock these up. But coming back over here, you can actually see Jiivita off in the background, and that is because he is over here accessing his beacon so he can give my character permissions on the fly. So this one right here, this is Engineer. This allows players to add and remove interactive props such as locks, machines, storage shelves, and the like. So my other player over here will be able to add and remove locks, but he doesn't have the builder, which builder is the required permission to be able to open up locked doors. And then finally, the worker is required for interacting with locked shop stands and request baskets. So this will allow me to switch in between the different permission types rather quickly. So if I interact with the shop stand, you can see I can interact it at the customer level, so I could actually buy things off of this instead of stock it, and the same for the request basket. And right over here you can see that there's actually 10,000 coins in this request basket, but again, I'll get to that a little bit later. So basically, how locks work is that they're going to lock anything that is adjacent to the block they are actually placed on. So the lock itself does not have to be adjacent to what you're locking, just the block that the lock is sitting on. So as you can see, this door I can open up and use. However, this door off to the side here, I cannot open up. And since these 2 doors are actually separate entities, see, I can interact with them independently, it does not lock the door beside it. However, if I place a lock on this trunk right here, you can see that it locks both sides of this door because they are joined as essentially one. So as you can see, I interact and opens and closes both at the same time, place a lock, and now those are locked. However, the potential unintended consequence here is that since this lock is on this piece of wood, it locks the adjacent doors, but it's also going to lock this adjacent shop stand. So if you have a shop stand near some doors that you're locking, you might want to double check and make sure you're not also locking your shop stand. I ran into this a couple of times on early access. I haven't really seen it on live because, well, people don't use locks too terribly often. So that does lock the shop stand. The only reason I can think of why you would want to deliberately lock a shop stand is if you want to put something for sale, but it's not really for sale, you just want to display it. You could lock the shop stand and then nobody could come along and actually purchase the item. So if you wanted to show off, say, like your Hopper Core trophies or something like that, yeah, you could put something on display, lock the shop stand, and then nobody can buy it. Or you could just set a really ridiculous price, which is what most people do. Now, why in the world would you want to lock a request basket? Well, it's kind of the same principle. Remember, there's 10,000 coins in inside of this shop basket, if you don't want other players to be able to see this amount of coin, you can slap down a lock anywhere adjacent to it, and now other players can't look and see if there's any coin in that request basket. And the reason why you might want to do this is if you're needing to share a bunch of coin between, say, like a guild or just a small group of players that you kind of want to share some coin, but you don't want that coin amount to be public to just anybody that walks through. Naturally, if it's unlocked, I mean, all they can really do is they can see how much coin is in there, but there's no way to access that coin unless they have either the worker or the engineer permission. So that is something that's good to note, is that even though I cannot pull this coin out directly because I have the engineer permission, I can add and remove interactable blocks, which includes request baskets. So literally I could come along, destroy this request basket, and as you can see, it also dropped the coin on the ground. So I was able to get that 10,000 coin. So basically you can't give both the worker or the engineer permission unless you want them to be able to access that coin. Certainly if they have the builder permission only, they won't be able to interact with any of the interactable blocks or place and remove them. So hopping back over here to this other game, now I can't interact with the shop stand, and I also cannot remove or place anything that's interactive. However, now that I have the builder status, I now can open and close locked doors. So one way to test this out, or at least to get some measure of confirmation that you have successfully locked something, whenever you place, it'll say off to the side, locked items, block is now locked. And that means that these doors are locked over here, so I can't open these up. However, when it comes to request baskets and shop stands, this information really isn't that accurate. So if we place down a lock, it says block unlockable. This type of block cannot be locked, when in fact it is locked. So that is something to keep in mind, that just because it says it's unlockable doesn't necessarily mean that it is completely unlockable. And the inverse is actually true for storage cells. So currently I cannot access these storage cells, but if I place a lock on it, it says that the block is now locked. And if I give myself the appropriate permission, I can go ahead and access these storage shelves even though it claims that they're locked. So as you can see, I can clearly access all of this storage, move things around, take things, and etc. So something that would be kind of nice is to basically come over to the permissions and have at least a fourth permission that has to do with locks. So you could have your builder, worker, and engineer. So a little bit of clarification, builder allows you to place and remove basic blocks. So the basic building blocks of this building you can place and remove. And then worker allows you to interact with things, but you cannot remove interactable things like machines and storage. So basically the worker allows you to craft and access storage. And then finally you have the engineer over here that simply allows you to place and remove interactable things like the storage shelves, machines, etc. So if you had a fourth permission over here that was solely to do with locks, it would allow you to lock, say, certain machines, except I don't think machines were ever intended to be lockable in the first place, but maybe lock some sensitive storage as well as doors. And then you would be able to give players permission to your beacon, but then still micromanage what exactly they had access to. Certainly I could come along and maybe put just this storage area on a completely separate beacon and then just not award those permissions to anybody except the most trusted players. That is a little bit kind of annoying to have to deal with a conglomeration of beacons for a single build, but that is a potential workaround to be able to do just that, to have sensitive storage available to only certain players. But again, that same functionality could be baked into locks and a more advanced permission type system. So as you might have already guessed, the best way to test out whether or not you have things properly locked is to in fact use one of your other characters and remove all permissions except for the engineer permission. So you come over here, you can see that my character only has the engineer permission and does not have builder or worker. What this will do, this will allow your additional character to place and remove locks, but anything he does lock will be inaccessible to him. So I can't access these shop stands or open up this locked door, but as you can see, I can still remove the lock and replace it if something isn't quite right. Anyway, I think that wraps this crash course up quite nicely. This was Jiivita. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more like this, and if there's anything you didn't like, please let me know down below. Also, if you like my channel and want to get cool perks, check out my Patreon page. Until next time, peace.